There is a country famous, above all else, for getting things right, for precision, for engineering so reliable it became a global punchline about efficiency. Their trains run on time. Their cars are built to last. Their word for order is practically a brand. If there is one nation on Earth you would trust to build a simple airport, it is this one.
By now, almost everyone has heard about Berlin's disastrous, off-budget, over-schedule new airport, but few know the real story about what went wrong.
So how did that country spend 14 years and more than 7 billion euros building an airport and produce, for most of that time, a vast, gleaming, fully built terminal that could not legally let a single passenger through its doors? An airport so famous for failing that it became a national embarrassment, a late-night joke, a symbol of everything that was supposed to be impossible here. The lights were on, the shops were stocked, the escalators worked. And for nearly a decade, it sat there, empty and silent, burning millions of euros a month just to keep itself switched on, while nobody flew anywhere. This is the story of how Germany of all places, built one of the most expensive monuments to failure in modern Europe. And the reason it could not open was not money, or war, or disaster. It was something so small, so fixable, that it should never have stopped anything at all. Stay with me, because the single problem at the heart of this is almost too absurd to believe. This is Berlin Brandenburg Airport.
I'm outside Berlin's new airport, which, after a delay of 8 long years, is finally ready to open. The main terminal, designed for 25 million passengers, feels airy and spacious, and it has nice details, including a large red carpet-like art installation hanging from the ceiling.
Here is the thing you have to understand. This is not a story about an airport. It is a story about confidence. About what happens when a project is so sure of itself, so certain that it is in capable hands, that nobody stops to check whether the certainty is actually earned. And it begins, like a lot of disasters, with a genuinely good idea. To understand why Berlin wanted this airport so badly, you have to go back to 1989 and the fall of the Berlin Wall.
From the Berlin Wall specifically, take a look at them. They've been there since last night. They are here in the thousands. They are here in the tens of thousands.
For decades, the city had been split in two, and that division had left it with a strange, messy inheritance. Not one airport, but 3 small, aging ones scattered around the city, none of them fit to serve the capital of a newly reunited Germany. The dream was simple and proud. Tear up that Cold War mess. Build one single, magnificent, modern airport worthy of the new Berlin. A gateway to the world. A symbol of a country stitched back together. Planning began in the early 1990s. The site was chosen. The design was grand. And the budget seemed entirely reasonable for a project of national pride. Somewhere around 2 billion euros. Construction began in 2006. The grand opening was set, with great confidence, for October 2011. Airlines were told to prepare. The Chancellor herself was expected to attend the ribbon cutting. Invitations went out. This was going to be a triumph. And on paper, there was every reason to believe it. This was Germany. They had built the Autobahn. They had rebuilt entire cities. An airport, however large, was well within their power. Everyone, the politicians, the public, the press, simply assumed it would be delivered, on time and as promised. Because that is what this country did. But beneath that confidence, the project was already rotting, and the first sign of just how badly came only weeks before that grand opening was due to happen. Because in 2012, with the invitations printed and the airlines packed and ready to move in, inspectors carried out one of the final checks on the building. They tested the fire safety system, and what they found stopped the entire airport dead. Now, to understand why this was so catastrophic, you have to understand what a fire safety system in a building this size actually has to do. If a fire breaks out, the building must be able to pull the smoke out, to suck it up and away so that people can breathe and find the exits. Smoke, not flames, is what kills most people in a fire. So the smoke extraction system is not a luxury. Without one that works, a building full of people is, legally and literally, a death trap. No system, no opening. It is that simple. And Berlin's system did not work. But it did not just fail quietly. It failed in a way so spectacular, it almost defies belief.
The new airport also has an underground train station built right below the main terminal, meaning you can take the elevator from the train tracks.
The system had been designed to be clever, extremely, unnecessarily clever. Instead of simply pulling smoke upward and out through the roof, the way almost every building on Earth does it, the designers had built an enormously complicated system intended to draw the smoke downward, beneath the building and out. It was novel, it was ambitious, and when they tested it, it did the one thing a smoke extractor must never do. It pushed the smoke back into the building. The fans that were supposed to save lives were, in effect, blowing the danger straight at the people they were meant to protect. The single most important safety system in the entire airport was not just broken, it was doing the opposite of its job. And there was no quick fix, because the whole concept was flawed at its root. And here is a detail that tells you everything about how desperate they were not to delay. Faced with a fire system that did not work, someone actually floated a backup plan to open anyway. Station hundreds of workers throughout the terminal, each armed with a mobile phone, as a kind of human smoke detection and evacuation network. Real people, standing in for the safety system that was supposed to protect them. It was, mercifully, abandoned. But sit with the fact that it was seriously considered, that the pressure to open was so intense, the leadership briefly entertained replacing a multi-million euro safety system with 800 people and their phones. The grand opening, weeks away, was cancelled. And that cancellation was the moment the dream began its long, humiliating collapse. But the broken smoke system was only the beginning, because once they started looking closely, the inspectors found that the rot went far, far deeper than anyone had imagined. When engineers began tearing into the building to fix the fire system, they uncovered a catalogue of errors so vast it is genuinely hard to comprehend. The wiring, for a start. The airport had been fitted with cabling, and not a little. We are talking about a length of cable that, laid end to end, would stretch many times across an entire country. And huge amounts of it had been installed incorrectly, wrongly routed, badly labelled. Some of it simply hanging loose because the channels meant to hold it had been forgotten entirely. To fix it, much of it had to be ripped out and reinstalled. And that was just the cables. As different inspectors and managers dug through the building over the following years, the count of defects climbed to numbers that sound like typos. One investigation found tens of thousands of faults. A later, more thorough review pushed that figure into the hundreds of thousands. By some counts, the number of individual defects in the building reached well over 500,000.
The airport can accommodate large jumbo jets, including the Airbus A380, but it's unclear whether that plane will ever land here.
Hold that number in your head. 500,000 things wrong in a single building. And these were not all tiny, invisible faults. Some were almost comically basic. Escalators were installed that were too short to actually reach the floors they were meant to connect. Thousands of doors were wired so that they would not open properly. A serious problem in a building that needs to evacuate quickly. Smoke detectors went missing, then turned up later. At one point, part of the roof was found to be so heavy and badly supported that an emergency halt was ordered, over fears it could collapse. This was not a building with a few loose ends. This was a building where, the closer you looked, the more you found that the basics, doors, stairs, roofs, wiring, had been gotten wrong. So how does one of the most capable engineering nations on Earth end up with this? And here is where the real lesson of the story lives. It was not one big mistake. It was the way 1,000 small ones were allowed to pile up, unchecked, because nobody was truly in charge. The project had been put in the hands of a public body, overseen by a supervisory board stuffed with politicians and officials. Important, powerful people, and almost none of them experts in building airports. They were not engineers. They did not deeply understand construction. And so, again and again, decisions were made by people who did not grasp the consequences. And the people at the very top kept changing. Over the life of the project, the airport burned through chief executive after chief executive, each one arriving promising to be the man who would finally deliver it, each one inheriting a deeper mess than the last, each one eventually leaving with the airport still closed. Every new boss meant new priorities, new reviews, new direction, and another loss of the hard-won knowledge the last one had gathered. A project this complex needs a steady hand and a single, consistent vision held over many years. Instead, it got a revolving door. Plans were changed late. New demands were bolted on. At one point, leadership insisted the airport be redesigned to accommodate the largest passenger plane in the world, a giant aircraft that was, by the time the airport finally opened, barely even being made anymore. Each change rippled through the building, breaking things that had already been built, and the people in charge did not have the expertise to see the chaos they were creating. And this is where the story stops being about engineering and starts being about money. Because every year of delay had a price, and the price was staggering. Remember the original budget, around 2 billion euros. As the years dragged on and the defects multiplied, that figure swelled. to 3 billion, to 4, to 5. The fire safety system alone, in the end, swallowed roughly €1 billion to put right.
After touring the facility for more than 2 hours, I can say with confidence, Berlin finally has a modern airport.
By the time the dust settled, the airport had cost more than €7 billion, over 3 times what was promised. Say it slowly. That's 10 zeros, and someone signed off on every single one. To put it in perspective, for the amount this airport went over its original budget, you could have built several entirely new airports from scratch somewhere else. The overrun alone, just the extra, the part nobody planned for, was larger than the entire project was ever supposed to cost. But the 7 billion is only the part you can see. Because all those years, the airport sat finished but closed, it was not free to keep. A vast, fully built airport still has to be maintained. The lights had to stay on. The escalators had to keep running. Staff had to patrol the empty halls. The building was hemorrhaging millions of euros every single month, just to keep an airport that served no passengers from falling apart. In one almost unbelievable detail, hundreds of the airport's display screens had to be replaced before it ever opened, because they had been switched on, glowing in the empty terminal for so many years that they simply wore out. The airport aged and broke and had to be repaired, all without ever having done its job for a single traveler. And there was a darker thread running through it too. With this much money flowing and this little oversight, the project attracted exactly the kind of trouble you would expect. There were allegations of corruption. One manager was arrested over bribes connected to the very fire protection work that was at the heart of the disaster. Contractors, investigators found, submitted enormous additional bills after their work was done, and were paid with remarkably little argument. When nobody is truly watching the money has a way of leaking. And by now, you might be asking the same question the German public was screaming. Why not just knock it down and start again? Or simply stop? But that option had quietly died years earlier.
Berlin's megaproject is on indefinite hold. After all the preparations and anticipation, the disappointment is all the greater.
Too much had been spent. Too much national pride was tied up in it. To demolish it would be to admit that billions had been poured into a building fit only for rubble. And no politician wanted their name on that decision. There was also a darker pressure. The city's old airports were meant to close once this one opened, and one of them was running on borrowed time, its permits expiring, still handling most of Berlin's passengers. They could not easily go back, and they could not yet go forward. So they did the only thing left. They kept paying, and kept fixing, and kept waiting. So how does a story like this finally end? Not with triumph, with exhaustion. After year upon year of broken promises and abandoned opening dates, after the airport had become a punchline known around the world, the work was, at last, quietly finished.